Well, good evening. Thank you all for being here. It really is a blessing to have you here, and thank you for coming. We've been looking forward to this, and I've been looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to hearing and learning this evening, so thank you for coming. Let me lead us in a word of prayer, and then I'll introduce some folks and just a word, then we'll get going, okay? So let me pray for us. Lord, we are grateful for this evening. Thank you for letting us be here. We thank you for this opportunity, as we were just talking, that lots of work has been done by many people for many years, and here we are talking about a school choice initiative and tax credits available for families who have their children in home school or private school. And so we're grateful for that. We thank you, Lord. We pray that you would continue to help those who are working on the details. Thank you for what work has already been done. Pray that you bless them as they continue, and look forward to this first round of applications coming up soon. We thank you for allowing us to have with us Mrs. Small, who will talk about some scholarship opportunities, and then Brian Tutt, and David Bond, and Jennifer Carter. We thank you for each of them and the work they've done, and pray that you'd allow them to enjoy being here and be helpful and encouraging to us. I'm grateful for that. Lord, we love you and thank you for loving us. We pray in Christ's name. Amen. Well, first of all, we will be videoing this, okay? So John's up there right now and doing it. Thank you, Kyle. So we will post that. Do we make sure we have their email addresses so we can, or how will that be? I'll let you tell them, okay? So how we get that link to you so you can watch it and then share it with others as well. And we will have a Q&A session at the end, so we'll just see how our time goes. We have a good timeline. We'll have time for questions and answers. If we have any questions, I'm sure we might have a few of those. I would like to hand out to all of you, you'll hear a little bit about the Opportunity Scholarship Fund. So I want to hand out to you, so school leaders, you can even look at this and use it for your schools, edit this a bit. For those of you who are interested at CHA, we have a number of students. I don't know the number of students, about 150 or so, give or take. Students here at Christian Heritage Academy who receive scholarships through the Opportunity Scholarship Fund, which is all donations given by individuals and businesses. So if you're familiar with that, fantastic. If you're not, you really should look into it for your school. The Lord is really using it schools across the state. It's amazing what God's doing. So I'll let you, Mrs. Small, would you hand those out? What we do here, and you're welcome to ask Mrs. Small for any details. I'll go ahead and introduce her now. Darcel Small is Christian Heritage Academy's Director of Admissions. So you say, well, yeah, I'm from another school. Great, that's fantastic. We host some breakfasts and lunches to inform potential donors about the Opportunity Scholarship Fund. We've done it for several years. So we even have other school administrators come and sit in on those, then they go back and do it at their own schools so people can donate to the Opportunity Scholarship Fund for their schools. So you're welcome to do that, or call Mrs. Small, ask questions if you have any, and we would be glad to help in whatever way we can you at your school. So first of all, Mrs. Small, you first. You're going to come and talk about some scholarship opportunities. Darcel Small, we're thankful to have her. She really is a school choice advocate. She and her husband homeschooled all of their children, and then she taught here at CHA for a number of years, and in the past several years has served as our Director of Admissions. She has kind of an inside lane, if you know anything about the OCPA, the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs, where David Bond is from, but her son, Jonathan Small, is the, what's his title, President of the OCPA. So because of Mrs. Small and her son, we get some first news out of the chute from Jonathan. So she stays well informed she knows Jennifer well and David and then her son, so we get lots of information. She's going to come and talk to us about some scholarship opportunities, the Folds of Honor, the Lindsay Nicole Henry, which Jennifer's been very helpful with us on that. The Opportunity Scholarship Fund, which is talked about, and then any active, and then what we do here at school, the active duty military discount and pastor's discount. So, Mrs. Small, would you come? Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. We'll just follow, as Josh mentioned, with just a few scholarships, and I know most of you are here to hear about the school choice, so we'll get to that quickly. The first scholarship would be the Folds of Honor Scholarship, and that scholarship is for dependents of either fallen military members or those who are disabled, and then also dependents of first responders. The important thing to know about that scholarship, there's an application online, but the time frame for that scholarship is from February 1st to March 31st each year, so you have to have the application submitted. The amount of scholarship dollars that are awarded it depends on the situation, but we have had some families who have received $5,000 per student. But again, that's not something that we manage or organize, so you'd have to go online and get that information about that scholarship. Okay, John, we're ready for that slide. The next slide is going to be the Lindsay Nicole Henry Scholarship, and certainly Jennifer can elaborate on this because she has done a tremendous amount of work with this scholarship. It is primarily for students who either have what used to be called an IEP, an individual education plan, so the name is a little bit different, but that's one of the main groups of students who are served by that scholarship. Also students who would be a dependent of a military person who has had a change in orders, so that student, if they were served by the IDEA, then they would be able to receive that scholarship. Students who have been in the juvenile affairs, who are served by a school, Sooner Start, and then also students who may have been displaced in DHS, foster homes, and those who have been adopted are also eligible to receive scholarships. And again, LNH has a formula to determine the amount of scholarship dollars that are awarded, and it varies based on each of those categories. When you go to the website and when you scroll down from that page, there's a place to complete an application, and it is all online. Once you determine what school you're going to attend, you'll need a letter of verification of enrollment from the school to upload to that online application. The next scholarship is the Opportunity Scholarship, and we've talked a little bit about that. That process, the important thing to remember about the OSF scholarship, while you look at those steps and it tells you how to apply, and there's a portion that discusses completing an application, that application through OSF happens after you've been awarded a scholarship at your school. So that first section where it says to contact your school, you're going to go through your school to complete an application. Many schools use fax, financial to process those applications, so you'll complete an application there. Then your school will award you a scholarship, and it's at that point that you complete an application online with OSF. The income eligibility guidelines, many people ask about that. How do I qualify? That's that next slide, John. So you can see those are published online for you to see if you're wondering if you qualify for one of those scholarships. The next are two discounts that we offer. It would be active duty military and then also for full-time pastors, and that's what we offer here at CHA, and other schools certainly may do that. And if you have any questions about that, then certainly contact me in the admissions office or Mrs. Stroley, and she's a director of finance, and we can help you with any of these scholarships that you may want to apply for. That's it, and we'll have questions at the end. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
So keep those in mind, and if you have questions on those, at the end we can ask Mrs. Small about any of those scholarships. Just to be clear, the Folds of Honor, the Lindsay Nicole Henry Opportunity Scholarship Fund, those are all available to any, based on their eligibility. Not all students apply or are eligible for all of those, but that's for students in private schools. Those last two, active duty military and pastors, is just what we do here at CHA for active duty families and full-time pastor families. Next, we have Brian Tutt. Brian Tutt is a graduate of CHA, graduated in '94, is that right? And his wife, Tasha Spears Tutt. So known Brian for a long, long time, and currently a parent, so second generation. His kids are second generation CHA people. Brian is a financial advisor with LifeMore Financial Services in Edmond, and so I've known him on a personal basis, and a teacher and coach, and And now he helps me and my wife with our finances. And so he comes really highly recommended by a number of folks. So Brian is going to share with us opportunity that all of us have to save some money on our state taxes through the 529 savings plan. So Brian, thanks for being here.
Don't have the real estate up here. Since I'm not Mrs. Small and you can't find me afterwards, can they ask questions throughout this? I mean, I'll be around afterwards, but she's at school. So if you have a question, just interrupt me. And this was, AI is a big buzzword. All these graphics that were just populated by PowerPoint. I'm sure that's not really AI, but I'm going to use some buzzwords in this. They said, hey, put things, so anyway, if you don't like the piggy bank and all the other things, I didn't do that. But I'm going to talk a little bit about ways to save for school, how that's kind of changed over the years, and kind of a scholarship sort of for everybody in a sense, and if you do this correctly. So you can go ahead and advance that one time, Kyle. One of these methods still exist, but I think that they're a little outdated. But custodial accounts, at one point, if you've saved for a minor at any point, you might recognize that. There's some tax advantages on how they grow. The drawback is when the child turns 18, it's theirs. So this will kind of show a progression of how things used to be and how much better they are now. Go one more slide for me, Kyle. In '97, they created the Roth IRA federally. They also created an educational savings account. That was an account that was used primarily for private school. You could use it for college. The downside to it is there were some income limitations on who could contribute, and annual dollar maximum contributions of $500. So that's fine. It's just hard to make very much progress saving for a pretty big goal like private school or college, $500 a year per kid at a time. Distributions were required by age 30. The benefit to this is that anything that the account made was free of taxes if you used it for college, so that started to ring a bell. And a few years later, go ahead and scroll one more, they created what was called a 529. This is a very catchy term. It's Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code. They're not very creative up there, but that's why it's called that. But these are similar to like a Roth IRA, if you've heard that term. You put post-tax dollars into it, and anything that it earns, you can take out and use for education, and the gains are all tax-free. A few years ago, in 2017, they tweaked it, and it used to be just a college savings tool, or actually just post-high school savings tool. They changed it so you can use it for education expenses for pre-kindergarten all the way through postdoctorate graduate degrees. So almost anything can be used. It's an allowable distribution from these kinds of accounts. But for the private school side, it's up to $10,000 per year per child. So that's how much you can draw out of that. It is an investment. They have sort of fixed menu investment options inside of these. So if you've ever had a 401k and you kind of pick a fund in there, the 529 plans are similar to that. They have everything from just a fixed account all the way up to pretty aggressive accounts, as well as probably 90% of the people pick a kind of a target date fund for the child dependent on the time they're going to go to college or go to private school or when you want to liquidate it. So they kind of gradually get more conservative the closer you get to that. It's a pretty nice tool. Also, there's an Oklahoma 529. These accounts are co-sponsored by an investment company and a state, so they partner together to use it. And Oklahoma's 529 offers a few other benefits, and I think it might be on the next slide. Nope, it's on this one. That allow an income tax deduction for contributions. So this is kind of the scholarship for everybody. If you have kids at private school already, Mr. Burlow tells me it costs $10,000 per year per kid. So if you have 2 kids and you're spending $20,000 a year already at CHA, put it into the 529 first, let it sit there for a while, let it marinate for a few months. My CPA tells me this is all on the up and up, and then take it out and use it for tuition. I mean, that saves you $950 every year. It's like $1,000, around it, $1,000 a year scholarship just for you if you do that kind of in 2 steps rather than just in one. So do that if you have kids that are in private school already. There are some limits. You can only have $450,000 in these accounts, so you got to cap contributions after that. The annual contributions are based on federal gift tax guidelines. It's $17,000 per year is how much you can put into there. You can put a whole bunch of years at once. If you would like, you can do up to 5 and kind of accelerate those gifts. You can actually put 6 years in at one time to get the state income tax deduction, so you can carry those forward for 5 additional years on top of the year that you made the gift. So that's kind of a nice little feature. And again, like I said, eligible expenses are tuition for private school, post-secondary, it's tuition fees, room, board, books, anything that's required for college except a car. Yeah.
The slide right after that, I saw the word grandparents or grandkids.
Yeah.
That was one of the questions that I had. I think it was on the next.
Yeah. He backed it up. Yeah, go to the next one. Yeah, go to the next one, because that's.
That was the question I had, is if grandparents are able to get that tax
Yep.
write-off.
Yep. So I'll go right to the second one. So it's anybody can contribute. So the tax deduction, go up a slide, Kyle. Oh, yeah, go back one right there. Anyone can make the contribution, and the tax deduction is given to the person that writes the check, not the person that owns the account. So if you set up an account for your kids and grandma and grandpa want to put some money in there for birthday or Christmas, they write it direct. They don't give it to you. They write it directly to the account, and they keep track of that. They report that on their own taxes, and they get a deduction for that. You can put your money in my kids' accounts, and we are not, I don't know you, we're not related. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be related. You can put money in any account. There's just a cap on how much of that you can deduct. It's not a refundable credit. I think maybe Ms. Small talked about that. So you do have to have some income tax liability to be reduced in order to get the benefit out of this. But anyway, it's a great tool. No income limits for contributions. The previous method does have some caps, but there used to be a cap on these. These have just gone nothing but in the right direction since they created them. They previously had income caps. That's been removed. So one little minor drawback is if there's still a balance there when they finish private school, and the parents own it, and you fill out your FAFSA, which is your free application for federal student aid, that will count as an asset of the parent. But it won't count any differently than if you had it sitting in a savings account or a mutual fund account or anything else. So it's not counted more heavily because it's in an education-specific account. I think it's 5.64% is what they ding you for by owning that account. A little workaround, if you wanted to do that, you could have grandma and grandpa own it. They're not going to ask about the soon-to-be college students' grandparents' assets. They're just going to ask about theirs and their parents, and that's it. So now, if you do that, it's not your money anymore, but if everybody does kind of a handshake and spit and all that stuff, that can work. And there have been a few other provisions, and again, this is kind of thinking a little bit longer term, but I always like to run things out to the worst case scenario. So if there's accidentally money left over at the end, which, believe it or not, I've been doing this long enough and have seen it happen. As a matter of fact, on Saturday night, I'm going to a wedding, kind of party, whatever that's called, reception. They're not getting married here, but it's the oldest daughter. Client has 3 daughters. They've saved, and they've rolled balances down. They'll roll them out to the last one. They'll have leftover money. So it does happen. But you can take Leftover balances, I don't know why you'd ever have a student loan and a leftover 529 balance at the same time, but if it happens, you can take $10,000 a year and use it towards that. But the newest provision of this, which doesn't take effect until next year, is you can move up to $35,000 of that terminal balance in a 529 and take it out and start a Roth IRA. It's all the same kind of money. It's post-tax, tax-free. You can move from 529 to Roth IRA. It'll take you a lot of years because you can't exceed the annual contribution limits, which are $6,500, but it takes you 6 years or so to get $35,000 out of a 529, and now it is in the beneficiary's Roth IRA. That's a crazy feature. I can't believe they did that, but that's a great benefit if there's something left over. You can also move it around inside the family. The family tree is pretty liberal. You can go up, down, sideways. So sister number 1 graduates. She's got a balance that rolls over to number 2, rolls over to number 3. But the nice thing is, at the end of the day, it is never the child's decision as to what happens with that. So if everybody did a good job and got scholarships and saved and was responsible, there's money left over, that's the account owner's money. So if there's $10,000 left and you want to treat yourself, it's yours. Now, you will pay some taxes because anything that it's made over the lifetime of it, you'll probably still pay some taxes. If there were no scholarships at all, you'll probably pay a little bit of a penalty on what it's made, but it's not very much. But if you've had it for 25 years, you have 25 years of tax-deferred growth, you probably won out in that thing anyway. But it is the parents' funds. There's not any kind of clawback on that. There are exceptions to the penalties. Death, disability, scholarship, military, academy offset those penalties. So there's a few provisions there. That's kind of dark. But anyway, any questions about any of that? Yes, no? So go one more slide for me, Kyle. How much to put in there? As much as you can. I mean, I think if you're paying tuition, put the tuition in first. Again, let it sit there for a little bit, make $1,000. If you owe $1,000 to the state, that's kind of a free scholarship. This is just giving a couple of examples. If you put $100 a month in, you can kind of see in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, and 18 years. The difference between those two columns, so if you go down to, say, year 10, you've put in $12,000, it's worth $18,000. That $6,500 of difference is tax-free when you use it for tuition. That's kind of the magic there. If you go to $500 a month and you don't touch it until they go to college, that $130,000 or so difference is tax-free gains that you get to use. And that's on top of the roughly $1,000 a year you saved in taxes while it was funded. Anyway, go to the last slide, Kyle, please. So I just kind of bullet pointed just a few takeaways. And most of this, other than some of those recent provisions, are going to be on the website on the next slide, which I have nothing to do with Oklahoma 529. They don't know who I am or that I'm here, that I'm doing this. I don't have any tie to those accounts, other than I have one. I've done a lot of the things that Mrs. Small has talked about and that I've talked about, and it all works. If anybody, I'm going to sidetrack for a second, because I skipped this earlier, if you've got a 529 balance that's not in the Oklahoma 529, which not every state has partnered and created these, but if you don't like Oklahoma's TIE, CREF investments, and you want to use somebody else's, that's fine. You don't get a deduction when you fund it, but you can, kind of like you move an IRA, you can move it from Plan Alabama over here back to Oklahoma, and when you move it, all of those past contributions get added in the year that you move it. You just kind of have to keep track of that. So if you've put in $30,000 over 10 years and you move it this year, you get a $20,000 deduction this year, and the other $10,000 goes into next year. So you can move things around. But the one thing that I like to kind of compartmentalize my dollars and cents, believe it or not, and this is a great way to do that just for college, because usually we have our retirement fund and everything else, and this can kind of peel off a dedicated account for that, so you won't forget what it is and that you don't get it mixed up with anything else. If you automate savings, that's just a great way to save. I've seen this for 25 years. Get in there, do whatever you can commit to per month rather than wait until the end of the year, because usually at the end of the year it gets pretty expensive and it doesn't happen. Again, key takeaways: tax-free growth just for education. The pre-built options by TA CREF are, they're acceptable. They're not exceptional. They're not bad. They're fine. You can look at those if you like. And again, you get the deduction for the donor, and there's just so many. I don't know what else they can create on the back end that would be a better option than what's already there. But anyway, there's lots of ways to get these funds to a good landing spot eventually. And just that very last slide is just this is the state's site, oklahoma529.com. Again, almost everything that I just said is on there, with the exception of those couple of recent provisions that they've created. So, yeah.
I don't know if you said it or not, but if they decide, after they graduate, that they would rather attend like a trade school or a VOTEC, is that covered?
It is, yeah. And that provision's been there since the inception, and I think it might have been up there. But anything post-secondary, so whether it's VOTEC or community college or college, university, graduate school, medical school, anything, culinary school, I don't know if that would count, but I would imagine that it would, will be a possible option for that. Good questions. Good. All right.
Thank you, Brian. Well, we're going to make a significant shift now from what's been around for a while and what we know works and we know how it works, and many of us have done it. Janelle and I have had a 529 plan for several of our kids. So we're going to shift now to what hasn't been done and what we don't know everything about, and none of us have ever applied for a tuition tax credit scholarship. So this will be interesting and informative. So tonight we have Jennifer Carter. Jennifer's a senior consultant for the American Federation for Children. She's worked with school choice for a long, long time. I was very thankful to meet her tonight. I've been reading her articles and her emails a lot for a lot of years, and so I've known Jennifer Carter. And so tonight I got to meet Jennifer. I'm thankful to get to do that. So Jennifer will share with us. I don't know if they're going to tag team or what. We'll let them work today. All right. David Bond is the Senior Vice President for Advocacy at the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs, the OCPA. Both of them work closely with the legislators. They spend a lot of time at the Capitol. They know senators. They know representatives. They know the governor. They do a lot of advocacy work at the Capitol, at the political level. Both of these individuals do. David, we love to claim David. Another one of our graduates, David graduated in 2000, did I get that right, from CHA. So have had a really wonderful relationship with David, and he's very, very knowledgeable. And both of these individuals, Jennifer and David, know, safe to say, more than anybody else about the upcoming school choice tax credit. Okay, so David, you starting? All right, David, thank you.
You want to be up here in case I forget something? It'll probably happen. Thank you guys for allowing us to hang out with you for a bit. Am I too close to that, or is that okay? All right. So yeah, so most of you, I can tell by the looks on your faces, you're here because you've heard about this new thing that would help your kids go to a place like CHA a little easier and make it a little easier for your family. And that's the goal. So our organizations, we're both of our groups we work for are very passionate about parents being able to access the education out of the options available wherever they are that makes the most sense for them. Many times that's public school. Sometimes it's not. Maybe it's a private school, but maybe you haven't thought, can I do that? Is that really achievable? Or maybe maybe I could do it for a couple of years, but could I sustain it? Or any of that. We work on a lot of proposals at the state capitol to make a lot of options available to parents, but we don't want to stop there. We also want parents to know about them and understand them and feel comfortable accessing them and feel like that is doable for them. It's one thing for a law to be in place and politicians did stuff and that all sounds like stuff that's not real life, but we want you to be able to use it. So that's what we're here to talk with you about. It's about to kick in. We have a couple private school choice programs that have been passed into law at the state level here in Oklahoma. Darcel talked about a couple of them, the Lindsay Nicole Henry Scholarship and the Equal Opportunity Scholarship, and now this is the third one. It's one of the most robust programs like this in the entire country. It's truly universal. Every child in the state is eligible for it. It was passed by the legislature and signed into law by the governor earlier this year. And so we're just going to go through it. Do you want, Darcel, do you want us to take questions as we go or after? As we go? Okay. If you want to interrupt us at any time, please do. It's nice sometimes to take a break. So,
And I'll interrupt him.
yeah, don't worry about that at all. Okay, so I think a version of it is up on the screen too, but it's also, I'm more or less going to go, we are more or less going to go through this first page here, the front and back side of that first page. What's going to be on the screen is kind of small. I certainly can't read it up there, but is it okay there? Yeah, it's not bad. It's going to be a little different since we put this one together that we handed to you. We have learned some new stuff, and there will be other pieces in here that we've learned, especially Jennifer is probably the most up-to-date person in the state on the fine details. So what happened is the legislature, hey guys, the legislature passed this into law earlier this year, and then, believe it or not, politicians at the state capitol, when they pass a bill, they don't take care of all the details. They, believe that or not, but it's true. And so whatever state government agency is tasked with implementing it has to come up with the rules for the fine details, like when do you apply and how does the check get to me so I can give it to the school so my kid can go to the school. All of those fine details. And so they are still working through that process. It has taken a little longer. It's that the Oklahoma Tax Commission is the entity that's responsible for that. There have been some hang-ups with that we've been working through, and I think we've made a lot of progress. But hopefully in the next few days we'll know a lot more than we do now. But, so let's just go through it real quick. So first off, it is a tax credit. It is a refundable tax credit. And so what does that mean? That means that however much your state income tax liability is, doesn't really matter. So we'll get to the income brackets for qualifying here in a second, but whatever your income tax liability is at the state level, even if you don't have any, as long as you're an Oklahoma taxpayer in some way, shape, or form, I think it's accurate to say, you're eligible, your children are eligible for this, your family is eligible for this. What your income does not matter. Whether you're, Harold Ham's grandkids or somebody on death row, your kids are eligible. And everybody in between. I'm sorry if that sounded drastic, but I just wanted you to know. Folks will apply for it through the Oklahoma Tax Commission. It's going to be something on their website that anybody can go to, and a lot of us have been really stressing to them to make it not intimidating and not scary, because we hear applying to something at the Tax Commission, and nobody wants to do that if you just stop it right there. But that will be the process. They're working with a vendor to put together a portal who has done programs like this in other states, similar programs in other states, so has some experience already with putting together systems that parents can apply for, and it works, and it doesn't get bogged down. A question we get a lot is, can it be used for the entirety of the current school year that we are now in, the 23-24 school year? The answer is no, because of how things shook out on when the legislature passed it and when the governor signed it and all those things. It doesn't actually kick in until January 1st, but that means that the second half of this current school year, it will be available beginning then. And then beginning in the following 24-25 school year, it will be available for the entire school year after that, if that makes sense. Yes, sir. So the question was, if you've already paid up front for this school year, and I think the answer, go ahead, Sarah, I think I know what it is,
Yeah,
but I
the
don't want
answer
to guess.
is yes, because it's the amount of tuition that you're responsible for tax year 24. And so when the school fills out the form that they're going to be required to fill out that verifies what your tuition, what is owed for 24, the school will include the spring semester, even if you prepaid it.
But not the 23 stuff.
Correct.
Are you asking about the 23 stuff also?
No, he was
No,
just
okay.
trying to make sure that even though he paid 24's tuition in 23, he would still be eligible
Okay.
for the 24 credit, and the answer is yes.
Very good.
Correct.
Yeah. How much is my child eligible for the tax credit? Every child is eligible, but it does range based on the family's income. It does not, and so you can see at the bottom right here, it's got a little list of the brackets and the income levels. The range is between $5,000 and $7,500 per child. And I think I maybe skipped a point, but it does need to be at an accredited private school. So CHA is accredited. I think most private schools in the state have accreditation of some kind, not all, but most. I heard there were some people from Community Christian. Obviously, you could use it there. They're accredited. But it does need to be an accredited private school. And the range that your child is eligible for is between $5,000 and $7,500 per year. And it's totally based on where your adjusted gross income is. So the adjusted gross income for, at some point we all have to learn when that is, and we never enjoy doing that. But so that's after you go through the process of filing your taxes. What your actual income is usually reduced, right? Because you have a child tax credit or a standard deduction or whatever. And so after that process, whatever that number is your adjusted gross income. And so that's the amount that you would apply into these brackets here and see what you're eligible for. And it doesn't matter how many kids you have. So if you have 5 kids, but your family's income is adjusted gross income is below $75,000, all 5 kids are eligible for the $7,500 for tuition and fees at a accredited private school. Let's see, what was next? And again, it will be for tuition and fees. So I imagine there will be things that you don't currently call fees that you probably will start calling fees pretty soon. So if it's been an activity, they'll probably call it an activity fee now, so that it can be applied. I'm assuming you do that. You will do that. Maybe you won't. But it will. So the main things that when you look at the price of a private school education, the main things you're looking at are the tuition and fees, and that's what this will apply to. What happens if our family qualifies for a $5,000 credit per child, but the school's tuition is just, for instance, $7,500? You'll get the $5,000 for that child, and you'll have to figure out how to make up the difference. And that's why a lot of the things that Darcel talked about will be a great relief to a lot of families. So that's how that will work. Well, I don't know that scenario would apply here.
I don't think we have the program cap in here, so we don't want to touch on the program.
Also, a couple things about there are some constraints on the program. One of those is that it is capped overall. In the first year, it will be capped at $150 million worth of tax credits. The second year, it will be $200 million. And starting the third year and beyond, it'll be $250 million a year per credit to be spread out in tax credits, to be spread out amongst all the families who apply. There will be priority given to families of $150,000 in income or below. And again, doesn't matter how many kids you have, just if you're in that income range, you will get first priority. So what will happen, let's see, right now, our understanding is that the application window will start on December 1st.
So this is incorrect, because this data just came to us last night.
Well, I thought you updated this one.
Well, I updated ours, but
Oh.
I had already sent this to Mrs.
Oh,
Swan.
yeah, okay, sorry. So it's been a little fluid. The politicians and the bureaucrats and people out here in the real world have been debating about how some of these rules ought to be, and so some of it's still in flux. As recently as last night, we thought it was still November 1st. But because it's taking them a while, they're pushing it to December 1st, which is probably a good thing. But so when we say priority status for those families of $150,000 or below in income, what that means is the application window will be roughly 6 weeks for this first go-round. It may potentially be different in future years where you're talking about the whole school year instead of just half of it. But for this first go-round, for the second half of the current school year,
It's the whole tax year.
well, right. the application window is December 1st through January 15th, is that right? And so,
I'm going to correct you. So the application window begins December the 1st and continues until the money runs out. But the priority window is just the first 45 days.
Yeah.
So December 1st to January 15th. If you're in a priority category, you want to make sure that you get your application in that timeframe. If you in that priority window and you apply on January 16th, you will not get priority status. Your application will just be wherever you are in line, assuming there's still funds available.
and then for the other families above that income threshold, above 150,000, regardless of how many kids you have, you're going to, if this is something you'd like to do, you should probably go ahead and apply as close to December 1st as you can, because what they will do, the tax commission, is they'll process all those people first who are 150,000 in income and below, and then they will do the rest of the folks on a first-come, first-served basis based on when you applied until the cap is reached. So even if you're above 150,000 in income, you still want to apply as close to December 1st as you can. If you can apply on December 1st, you should do it, if this is something you would like to do.
And we do expect that we will exceed the cap, that applications will exceed the cap this first year.
Yes. Some people, oh,
This lady
Yes,
has a
ma'am.
question.
Is there, like a priority for the next year, or do you have to reapply every year?
yeah.
At this time, the way the law is written, everybody just reapplies every year until, I mean, if we have our way, we won't have a cap, and everybody who applies every year will get the credit, but we're not there yet.
Yep. That's a good question. Yes, sir.
If the application for this year, is that only applicable to the latter half of this semester, or say our son would be starting next year in school? So would we need to apply at the following application deadline, or would we still apply this year for next year?
That's a really great question. So it's going to depend on the school and how the school is handling either admission or intent to be admitted. There are some schools who are talking about granting, because what has to happen with your application, when the parent applies, the school has to provide you with a document that you submit with your application that says that you are going to be attending at some point in the tax year 2024, and that what your tuition amount is for that year. So if you don't have a school who's willing to provide you with that document, you won't be able to complete an application. So again, that depends on the school and what their process is. And you'll kind of have to forgive the schools a little bit because they've not really had an opportunity to wrap their head around that, because A, the rules are not finished yet. We just have gone through a round of proposed emergency rules. We've all commented. That comment period ended last Thursday, and the tax commission is working very fast, and it's my understanding that they will submit the final rules on Tuesday for a vote of the tax commission at Tuesday afternoon. So we will see, maybe we'll get a preview, I'm not sure, but we will definitively see what the final rules are on Tuesday afternoon. And that is one of the reasons why they delayed the application window to December the 1st for this first round of applications. So that was a really long-winded explanation, but I feel like some of those details are really important.
So as of right now, yeah, go ahead, sir.
Do they publish those rulings once they're ruled on the website?
Yeah, so the tax commission website is ok.gov/tax, and there's a tab about 3 things down that says Oklahoma Parental Choice Tax Credit. And right now, if you click on that link, it has the proposed rules and the FAQs, which are no good. So hopefully all of those will be rewritten Tuesday afternoon, and they should, if they are not published immediately when the commission rules on it, I anticipate we'll see that very quickly on the website.
And right now, one of the frustrating things about how it's being implemented is they are currently saying it's going to be implemented by tax year. So when you apply for it, you will be applying for a tax year. And most of you know that's a calendar year. And you also know that's not the same as a school year, which is more, August to May. So that is one of the most frustrating things that we've been dealing with the Tax Commission on right now. But as of right now, that is still where it is. So to your question, unless that changes between now and Tuesday, you will probably want to try to go ahead and get your application in early December for the coming fall school, when the school year that starts in the fall of August of next year. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, you'll need to get that document from the school that says that you are going to be enrolled and this is what your your tuition responsibility is. So, yeah, schools are gonna have to wrap their head around how they wanna handle that for new applicants for fall of '24.
And if you
Dr. Bullard's over here looking at me like,
Yeah.
Jennifer.
we were supposed to fix that. And if you want to talk in more detail about it, we can stick around or ask anything. If we don't know the answer, we'll make it up. I'm just kidding.
I want to also say, we understand, and as Dave has said, we've been fighting for the Tax Commission to take a different viewpoint of when that application window, or what the application timeframe should be, not tax year but school year. And we have been working with legislative leadership in the governor's office. They agree with us that the intent was school year, not tax year. So this first time is going to be a little bumpy because of that in particular and maybe a few other things. And we will be at the Capitol with a bill filed to change that from calendar year to school year. So the next application hopefully will be much smoother.
A lot of people ask if they can stack this new tax credit with the Lindsay Nicole Henry Scholarship or the Opportunity Scholarship, the OSF stuff, and the answer is yes. So you can do both, or you could potentially do all three. I think we've talked about that. What will I need to apply for the tax credit? You will need the Social Security number. Is it for them or for the kid?
Both.
Both? Okay. A copy of go ahead and get a copy of your state, and for this first go-round, get a copy of your state and federal taxes for 2022. They'll be going off 2 tax years ago. Whatever year it is, they'll be going off of 2 tax returns ago. So, because often by the end of the year, people don't have theirs filed for the previous year. So we're hoping, go ahead.
So for '24, you'll want your AGI for '22. And if you've already filed taxes in the state of Oklahoma, you shouldn't need to upload your tax return.
Do we know that for sure?
Yes,
Oh,
that
okay.
is one of the things that we fought with the Tax
Yep.
Commission on. You do not, as long as you have already previously filed Oklahoma taxes. So what will happen is, this is real technical, but I'm really geeky about things like that. When you submit your AGI, what the vendor will do is it'll shoot an electronic message to the Tax Commission, is this true or false? And if they get the true message, then you get to keep going. And so that's
they
how
will
they'll,
need the AGI number
they
still.
will need the AGI number, yes. So
Okay.
you'll want to have your tax return in front of you if you don't know that number, because I don't know the number of mine. But you'll need that number, and that's how they'll verify true or false, if that's correct, and then you can move on. And if for some reason it's false, then there'll be a help desk available. The vendor will have a help desk to help walk families through if there's a problem. It will be in English and Spanish. So there'll be some assistance available that we won't have to wait on the Tax Commission to answer the phone.
Yes, ma'am.
So the question is, if you're a divorced family and you have some arrangement, or either in the custody agreement or divorce decree, or some just verbal agreement that you have, you guys just have to work it out. I mean, that's it's. It doesn't matter if the child is not on your tax return, but if you are claiming it and the child resides with you, it is your AGI that will be used. And a grandparent can claim the credit. If a grandparent pays the tuition, a grandparent can claim the credit, but they have to use the AGI of where the child resides.
Okay. And so the other thing that you will need to apply is what Jennifer talked about earlier. The school that you want your child to go to, or maybe they're already there, you'll need to ask them for an affidavit. Is it going to have to be?
It's not going to be called an affidavit
Oh, it's not?
anymore.
Okay.
Sorry, Dave
That's a
hasn't.
new thing, too.
Dave hasn't read my text messages.
I read some of them. Some of them.
So it's no longer going to be called an affidavit because it does not need to be notarized. And for those of us lawyerly nerds, when you use the word affidavit, that means it needs to be notarized. So it will just, I don't know what they're going to call it, like a verification document, maybe similar to what we do for Lindsay Nicole Henry, but it's just a document from the school, but it does not have to be notarized.
Okay, very nice. But that, what we'll have on there, it will have, yes, we have an agreement with this family to have this child or perhaps multiple children at our school in the coming school year, and here's how much it's going to cost. And the amounts might be different, and so they'll factor in some of the stuff that, like if there's a pastor-child discount, they'll factor in those things.
And if you're a Lindsay Nicole Henry recipient, you would take that off of what is owed. So say you get $3,500 in Lindsay Nicole Henry scholarship, and you're eligible for $7,500 tax credit, then you would only want to put $4,000 in tuition as owed, or anyway, you would want to use Lindsay Nicole Henry first because it is an uncapped program versus the tax credit, this tax credit, which is a capped program. Yes, ma'am.
Like a new application per kid?
That's a really great question. So the question was, do you have to do a separate application for each child? No, you get to do it by family if that's how if you have a single taxpayer that is going to claim all the children. So that was a fight we fought with the tax commission, and fortunately the vendor was able to come up with a solution that worked for everybody. And so the front-facing piece of it for the family will be one application for all the children, and then it will divvy it all up when it sends it to the tax commission so that they can have it by child.
Did you have, no? You can have two more if you want.
They absolutely can go to different schools, yes. So, but you'll just need the different documents from each school.
But you probably need to do two applications.
I don't know, that's a good question I'll have to ask. I think you should be able to do it on a single application still, but I will flag that as a solution that needs to be developed if it hasn't already been.
As long as both schools are accredited. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm representing a school, but the school and the family right now know what the LNH scholarship is for the student for the spring semester, but we don't know until next summer what the August semester LNH will be. How do we handle that?
So my suggestion is that you use the same amount for the spring because it's not likely to go down unless we have some just really crazy thing that happens at the Capitol. We've not seen per pupil decrease in a really long time. So my suggestion to you would be to use the same amount for both the spring and the fall. And then I have asked the tax commission to create a way because what will happen for schools is that the vendor will, before they send checks out in the fall, they'll check back with the school to verify that the student is still enrolled and that the tuition amount is correct. I've asked if they could please provide an opportunity then for Lindsay Nicole Henry students to adjust what they need via the tax credit. So if their allocations go up, which they likely will, then they would need less in the tax credit, and then that money could be used for another family. So I think they're going to do that. They've been very maybe not excited about, but looking for ways, well, not looking for ways. They are working with the vendor to find a way to make sure that if funds are not used in the tax credit, that they have a mechanism to shift those dollars to the next family in line.
What else? Was there anything you can think of, any of the new stuff that is worth mentioning?
I think we talked about the document name change. There's no notary needed. You shouldn't have to upload your tax return. There's a single application. Do we want to talk about the 1099 situation?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So if you're a Lindsay Nicole Henry recipient, you do that first, and then you're only eligible for the remaining balance if there is one for your tuition. What about those others, the OSF, Folds of Honor, those other scholarships? How do those things work?
So
State dollars.
Correct. But in the interest of, we have a capped program, particularly as it relates to something like Folds of Honor or some external scholarship, I would suggest that you apply that first. Because the tax credit is not meant to be a windfall or extra cash in anybody's pocket outside of what is owed for tuition. So that more families can take advantage. If a scholarship is given, particularly a private scholarship like Folds of Honor, that be applied before you do your request for the tax credit. As it relates to OSF, I have mixed feelings about that. So all of this is really at the school's discretion. But I think that in the situation as it relates to the Opportunity Scholarship, that you do the tax credit first, and then if there's a family that needs that extra help so that they can attend school, then you apply OSF after, is kind of the way I feel about it.
When do you determine, she probably knows, but you may know too, when do you right now determine what your OSF scholarships are going to be?
Probably not till spring, right? For next school year.
Next fall, correct?
Yeah.
Right, you
So
should keep doing it then.
Yeah. You're not going to make your OSF determinations any earlier than that. So it's not going to be an issue for this current application.
So then in an application window that lasts from December 1st to January 15th, you don't know what those are yet. And so it is impossible for you to put them on that form because you don't know. Does that make sense?
So what do you do for the fall of '24?
They get the full amount.
Well, and also by then, you know which families have gotten the new thing, the parental choice tax credit, and you can see, well, they got it, they're good now, but this other family didn't get it, they need a little help. So it should, in December, you don't know. I mean, you don't.
Well, and the same goes for any other scholarship for fall. Like if they don't have that scholarship information for fall, you can't list that. But there is an opportunity, in my opinion, when the verification process happens before they send out fall checks, that there's an opportunity, if there's a need, to reconcile those numbers.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a really, really good question. The tax commission really didn't want to put in the rules what the timeline was going to be. And my understanding from yesterday's conversation was that they wanted to put 60 days in because the legislative leadership said you need to put a timeline in. And when 60 days was suggested, that was vehemently opposed. So I know in my conversation with the tax commission, their intention is to send out the first checks in February. So you would get spring semester in February. And then our suggestion for the timing of fall checks, and once we get into a regular rhythm, is that fall checks would be issued in August, and spring checks would be issued in January, has been our suggestion on the go-forward basis. Now, if and that's assuming their family applied in the early window, if there's money, we get to a place where we don't have a cap any longer, and then it's just a rolling time frame, then we've suggested no later than 30 days from the notification of approval to the family. So that's been our request.
Yes, ma'am.
So for homeschool, it's a completely different process. It's a smaller credit. It's $1,000 per child, and that the family needs to keep track of their expenses that they accumulated throughout tax year 24. When they file their taxes in 25 for the 24 year, they will there'll be a box on their tax return to say that these are the deductions that we had for, or these are the expenses that we paid. And then they'll just need to keep the receipts. One of the things we ask of them is to delineate how long those receipts need to be kept, because they didn't put that in the rules. And then they don't have to turn those receipts in, but they need to keep them in the event they get audited. So there's no pre-application process for homeschool, and that payment comes later than the tuition credit.
Can I see somebody else over here? No?
Yeah, he's got a question.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, the 1099. So the tax commission is of the belief that even though it is likely that the credit is not taxable, that they must issue 1099s. So we will, along with some of the other changes that need to be made to the program next session, will pursue legislative change that says you will not send 1099s out and make it very explicit that it is not taxable income. So before they would ever need to issue 1099s, we hope that we will solve the problem before we get to that place.
Because it wouldn't be until...
They wouldn't
what,
issue those
January
1099s until January of 25, yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay. And we could stick around after if folks have, if you think of another question, just grab one of us, and I've got stuff with my contact info if you think of it if you think of it later, and you can just text us or email us or ask Darcel or Mr. Bullard or whoever, and they'll chase us down in the dead of night and ask us. Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah.
I really do encourage you to take advantage of either or both of those individuals. They really do know a lot, and they are glad to give you their contact info, their email address, and they will. Jennifer's is already up there. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay. Anything, Mrs. Small, before we dismiss? Okay. Thank you so much for coming tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to hang around or contact us later. You're dismissed. Thank you.